Thank you very much for asking me to deliver the C.P. Padmakumar Memorial Lecture of 2019. It is a true honor. And today I shall be speaking about the great Bengali Sufi Baul saint, poet, composer, songmaker, Lalon Shah Phokir, who practiced a faith that was truly syncretic in nature and tried to combine the various strands of belief systems that were available in Bengal at that time. He lived in the 18th and 19th centuries, and by conjecture, by his own admission, he was born in 1774, died in 1890, which makes it 116 years. Now, is that believable? In my opinion, a credible conjecture. 116 is not impossible. Now, Lalon's death was, as I said, marked as 1890 in an obituary published in the Hitokuri journal, edited by Mir Musharraf Hussain and Akshay Kumar Maitra, co-edited by these two friends, just 2 days after Lalon died. And this document is a very important one if we are going to even start trying to understand Lalon Shah Phokir. In this rather longish obituary, the word circled in that area, in that red mark, it says Mohatta Lalon Phokir. Now, the word Mohatta or Mahatma, we know, was used after a different person a few decades later in the 20th century. But Lalon, indeed, in his first recognition in the Indian press, was referred to as Mahatma Lalon Phokir. And in that, a lot is said about his life, that he was born Hindu, who went on a pilgrimage once and then contracted smallpox, and his fellow co-travelers in that pilgrimage tossed him into the river. They were traveling by boat. So they tossed him into the river in fear of infection. But Lalon didn't die. He somehow swam across and survived the smallpox. And he was rescued by a Muslim couple who were practicing Sufis, and they were fisher folk, and they saved his life, resuscitated him. He is supposed to have gone back to his actual Hindu family of birth at a very early age. He had a mother, he had a wife even, but they spurned him away on account of the fact that, by his own admission, he had eaten out of the hands of a Muslim. That was a big no-no. And moreover, they had performed his funeral rites, assuming him to be dead, because that's what the friends who returned told them. So he wasn't accepted back. And he decided to come back to his adoptive parents and lived for the rest of his life in Kushtia, in a little village called Cheuria, where he practiced. Now, we have seen a signature, right? I showed you the signature, which is legal document. And yet, in the obituary, in this little line that I've underscored, it says, he did not read or write. So now there's a contradiction. You'll find a lot of such contradictions in Lalon's life. Let's look at just a few. He did not read or write. Let's just keep it in the back of our heads. In the next page, they describe what happened after he died. And it says, praises was sung to Lord Krishna after his death. And that's one line underlined. I have underlined a couple of other lines that say that no Hindu priest was called, neither was an imam asked to come and do the janaza or, the last funeral rites. Yet, all the praises were sung to Lord Krishna as they prepared his dead body. They still, nonetheless, he was buried. So who is this man? A very strange entity. Even more than a century after his death, we would find it difficult to, we wouldn't commonly hear of stories like this, where someone who is buried, who In that legal document that he signed, he wrote Islam as his religion. And yet on his deathbed, not on his deathbed, after his death, kirtans are sung in praise of Krishna. So you get confused. And then you look at the body of music that Lalon has created. You see that he sings songs praising Ilahi al-Amin, Badshah, Allah. And then he also sings in praise of Krishna and Chaitanya. And, and he is devoutly Hindu and devoutly Muslim at the same time. That's an untenable position in our mind, but it's a mental block, really. You can get over it. So let's have some evidence here. My field work in Kushtia, although the performance of Man of the Heart started in 2005, my field work in Kushtia actually started way back. It started in 1997, so 8 years before. And my academic research began even earlier in 1991. So this research into Lalon Phokir goes several decades. And in 1997, when I went to Kushtia for the first time in search of Lalon Phokir, I went to his gravesite and there ran into a couple of people who were the caretakers of Lalon's gravesite, Lalon's mausoleum. And this is what they had to say.
সাইকে যখন 16-17 বছর বয়স তখন উনি বসন্ত রবিনে পানিতে ভেসে আসছিল। উনি এখানে যে মলম শাহ নামে একজনা সুফি ব্যক্তি ছিলেন, তিনি ফজরের নামাজ পড়ে উঠে নদীর ধারে বেড়াতে জায়গা উনি মৃত অবস্থায় ওনাকে নদীর ঘাটে পায়, তাকে বসন্ত রোগে উনি নদীর থেকে ওঠা নিয়ে
কোন নদীর ধারে
বাড়িতে উনি রাখেন। 3 বছর ওনাকে প্রতিপালন করেন বাড়িতে। 3 বছর পর লালনের ঐশ্বরিক শক্তি দেখে উনি এইটা ছিল ওনার পালক পিতা যে মলম শাহ ফকির, ওনার বাগান বাড়িটা 16 বিঘা জমি বাগান ছিল এইটা। লালনকে এখানে জমিটা দান করে দিয়ে উল্টে দিয়ে এখানে ওনাকে বসায় দেয়। যে ঘরে দাঁড়িয়ে আছে এইটি হচ্ছে ওনার ইবাদত বন্দিগির ঘর। এখান থেকে উনি ওফাত হন বাংলা 1297 সাল 1 কার্তিক শুক্রবার সবে সাদেক 12 রবিউল, ইংরেজি 1890 সাল 17 অক্টোবর শুক্রবার।
Lalon was not a preacher. He did not believe in building-based religions. Building-based as a pun. There were no bases that were built, but at the same time, the religion was not based on a building, on an architectural building, like a mosque or a church or a mandir or synagogue, whatever. It wasn't based on that at all. In fact, he countered institutions without creating any counter institutions. If you see what I mean, that he was against institutions but did not provide an institution back in riposte to that institution he was critiquing. So this was a very difficult position. I mean, we all talk about sitting on the fence, but for those people who make the fences their permanent places of sitting, they're not very comfortable. You can't be very comfortable on a fence. But Lalon practiced hard to get comfortable with that discomfort. And this is evident in his songs because his songs were a way of, were a passage, were a mode of accessing the deeper truth about God and man and woman and how did this world operate. Lalon's belief was that the Godhead, unseen, unfathomable, metaphysical and physical, within and without, was actually ineffably present within the human body. And you would spend a lifetime just trying to get touched, to get blessed by that God that was residing in your body itself. He would refute, for example, Muslim imams who would chase him down, saying that what kind of a Muslim are you? You call yourself a Muslim, you write your religion is Islam in a legal document, but then you don't do the namaz. He says, but every breath I take is a namaz. You're just talking about 5 namazes. Can you imagine how many times I pray if each breath is a namaz? So that was his line of reasoning. And he looked for the divinity, as I said, within the human body. And this was reflected through a number of symbols, symbolic terms that Lalon kept using in his language, which was drawn both from Vaishnavism and Hindu mythology, as well as Sufi poetry. For example, the image of the bird. You know, the image of the bird is something that is an image that keeps coming back and back again in Lalon's music. So now that we have had a froth of words, let's punctuate it with a musical interruption. And this, I'll start with a song where Lalon is talking about, you know, his awareness of how in society people didn't know quite where to place him. The Hindus called him, you know, Yavana, meaning infidel, and the Muslims called him Kafir. So he didn't know where to go. So this is a song that starts with that. I've written the Bengali out and a very poor, rough-hewn translation below, but that should allow you to stay with my lecture. Shobe bole, Lalon Phokir, Hindu ki jobon. Lalon bole, আমার আমি লালন বলে আমার আমি না জানি সন্ধান হিন্দু কি জবন বিবিদের নাই মুসলমানি বিবিদের নাই মুসলমানি পৈতা নাই যার সেও তো বাউনি বিবিদের নাই মুসলমানি পৈতা নাই যার সেও তো বাউনি ভেবে দেখো রে ভাই ভেবে দেখো রে ভাই দিব্য জ্ঞানী লালন তেমনি জাত খান সবে বলে লালন ফকির হিন্দু কি জবন. I sang only 1/3 of the song. If I try to sing all the songs, there will be no lecture. So what I'll do is I'll sing little bits and pieces, and some of the songs that are really brilliant, I'll sing the whole piece. Okay, so this is a radical thing to say that, you know, circumcision marks a Muslim man as recognizable as Muslim, right? But what happens to the woman? The Hindu Brahmin is recognized by his thread. But what about the Hindu Brahmin woman? So again, he's doing two things. He's not only talking about the pointlessness of religious difference, he's also pointing at the inequality of gender. And why is that? Why is the woman important in Bauls thought and Lalon's philosophy? The reason is that even while they say that the Godhead resides in the human body, it's not the male body that they're talking about. They're talking about the female body. That whatever's out there in the macrocosmos is in there in the microcosmos. Okay? And that microcosmos resides in the female body, not in the man's body. And the man has to genuflect before the woman. Therefore, the woman is the temple at whose doorstep you sit with your hands folded. So now, of course, with this comes the question of how does the man do this? How do you genuflect? How do you worship the woman and find the divinity that resides within her? Now, this is where the project gets a little bit unbearable and intolerable for the educated middle class generally, because Lalon is talking about sexual contact. Lalon is talking about a sexual contact between man and woman that is, however, bereft of lust. That there is no carnality involved. It's not about having sex, it's about making love. That needs to happen between man and woman. And more importantly, it needs to happen while the woman is menstruating. Contrary to what we think. You know, in most Indian cultures in the subcontinent, menstruation is something, one, we do not talk about. I mean, sanitary napkin is called whisper for a reason, right? Yeah? Come on, laugh a little bit. It's funny. See, you wouldn't laugh spontaneously. Why? Because I'm talking about menstruation. There is a ghost inside that keeps us, oh, no, don't talk about menstruation. It's like, you could talk about Pakistan, but not about menstruation. You can talk about serial killing, but not about menstruation. You can talk about Modi or Didi in our state, but not about menstruation. You can curse someone to death. You can say the worst possible things, but you can't talk about menstruation. No. You can show men in brief underwears on the billboards, women in bikinis, but you can't talk about menstruation. What's the problem? Lalon, Phokir and the Bauls invert this. They think menstruation is when the woman is at her holiest. In the 5 days of menstruation, the first day and the last day are considered not inauspicious because it's the dirty blood coming out. Okay? But in the 3 days in between, it's the blood that is at the heart of the womb that is coming out of the uterus. And that blood has colors, and in one of those colors, the Monir Manush, or the man of the heart, or the Godhead, is residing. And the human body is that temple where, the female human body is that temple where the man must, use his phallus in a reverse order. Not as a phallus that will ejaculate sperm inside the woman's genitals, but rather something that will pull away through a control of your body, through the bodily control, you would be able to establish contact with the Godhead. So that being the case, it is only natural that Lalon, when he would try to talk to his disciples through his songs, he would use covert symbols and hidden codes, so that the people who knew would know what he's talking about. But the people who didn't know would go and just get another surface meaning of it and be happy with it. And that was not Lalon's concern. He was not trying to get popular on MTV or Coke Studio. That was not his purpose. His purpose was to practice, and music was an embodiment of that practice, was an embodiment of the discursive trajectory in which the guru and the shishya, the murshid and the murid, would talk to each other. And they would form a triangle. Triangle why? You have the guru and the shishya on one side, you have the guru and the sadhaka, and then you have the sadhika in a triangle. And the triangle even represented the vagina. Okay? And it would be under the tutelage of the guru, okay, the murshid, that the murid would turn into an ashik. These are terms from Sufism. Ashik meaning lover. And the sadhika, the Chetan Guru. You have the Guru and you have the Chetan Guru. The Chetan Guru would become the Mashuka. Mashuk, the beloved. So lover, beloved, as monitored by the Guru or the Murshid. That was the combination. And no matter what nomenclature you use to define it, it was the same thing. So there was a parity that was built between Sufi Islam and Vaishnav thought, and Tantra as well. Okay, so we will return to all this, but let's make matters a bit light. It's getting too heavy. Yeah. So, what did Lalon Phokir look like? Do we know? Answer is yes, but it's a problematic answer. By and by, you'll know why. This is the only sketch of Lalon Phokir that we have, okay? A very roughly drawn picture, a pencil sketch of an old man sitting on a rather stately chair. And this picture was drawn on top of a boat by none else than Jyotirindranath Tagore, okay? Who was Rabindranath Tagore's elder brother, okay? In 1888 or 89, so it is marked on the back of the page. However, there is another picture that is often passed on as that of Lalon Phokir. Now this picture, if you remember, the previous one is very different from one that I'm showing currently on the screen. And yet this picture has gained more popularity. And this was drawn by another doyen of the Bengal art school, which is Nandalal Bose. Nandalal Bose drew this, and somebody had written behind the picture, not even Nandalal's own handwriting, somebody had mistakenly written on it Lalon Phokir. And that was the end of the end. Because this picture became known as Lalon's image. Okay? But Nandalal Bose could not possibly have drawn a sketch of Lalon. Why? Because he was born just a few years before Lalon died. So he was 6 the year Lalon died. So, how could a 6-year-old do this sketch? So, we have a conflict here. The real image and the false image. The false image that has been corroborated through overstatement and turned real. Okay? Now, in 1990, the Bangladesh government issued a stamp. Now, you must remember that Kushtia, the district in Bengal that I'm talking about, after 1947, was given to East Pakistan. So, Lalon Phokir's gravesite actually is in Bangladesh now. So, in 1990, the Bangladesh government published a stamp which was based on the original image. Now, look, it's been airbrushed and photoshopped, as if that sketch wasn't good enough. They needed to, fleshen it out, and perhaps in that process also erase what Lalon might have looked like. Okay, so there goes one. So we already have a false appearance here, which is not, we can't accept that there is no other sketch of Lalon. We don't know what he looked like beyond that sketch. So that sketch is the only thing we can use. But then the urban culture, the literate classes have always tried to colonize the illiterate. Very often we quote Marx saying religion is the opiate of the masses. But then it's also the outcry of the oppressed, which is the next phrase that Marx wrote after that line. We often do not recognize that utterances of folk cultures, of people's illiterate masses, is often an outcry protesting the oppression. So being part of that politics, of course, anybody who is empowered to issue a stamp could put any picture, could put the picture of Donald Duck over there and call it Lalon Phokir for what you might say. So 1990, this is Bangladesh. Now in 2003, the Indian government came up with a stamp. And look, it's Nandalal Bose's picture they have used. So flagrantly the wrong picture. Yet, these first day cover stamps are the nation is trying so hard to honor one of its citizens. And yet that honor is colored at its very basis with dishonor, because you've never cared to find out whether this is really Lalon Phokir or not. You just put it, you've done my service. Oh, Lalon Phokir, my God, folk music, fantastic, brings us close to the soil. But these words mean nothing. It means, I'm being urban, I have my city life, I have my protected city life, and then I deign at times to go to the villages and get a taste of it. This is usually what it means. It's hard to admit because we are all complicit in this. And that's why, from CD covers to Facebook profiles to festival posters to book covers, everywhere we will find this wrong photo, wrong sketch of Lalon Phokir's being paraded as Lalon. And it's just either turned to the left or to the right, you know. It's like political ideologies, left or right. Okay, so Lalon is being projected like that. Now, what about these two? Greatest respect, no disrespect meant. But what if we did this? If we switched their beards, you know, the whole country, not Kerala perhaps, but Bengal certainly would be up in arms. You cannot do that to Tagore, you cannot do that to Einstein, but you can do that to Lalon Phokir. Why? Uneducated, illiterate, lower class, doesn't matter. Folk music, or as they say in Bengali mode of pronouncing English, folk music. And you know, it's very perilously close to a vowel shift, which could change the meaning of the word entirely. Okay, let's move on. Where did Lalon live? Let's try to look at the map and get our bearings straight. This is the Kushtia district of Bangladesh as we know it now. And you can see in the map of Bangladesh that little green shape, like a kidney, that is Kushtia. And in Kushtia, what you have in the center is the Kushtia city. The city of Kushtia, which is also called Kushtia. Okay? And right next to it, there's a little dot, which is Cheuria, which is the village, little village where Lalon lived and practiced and died. Okay? Now, what's interesting, we were talking about cultural difference and class difference, how class, caste, and culture is a very rabid playing field of political power. It's a minefield. You never know what's going to explode when. In that regard, it is important to note that just on the other side of the river, where Cheuria is, the Kali river, just on the Godai river, just on the other side is Shilaidaho. Shilaidaho is the zamindari estate of the Tagores, which Rabindranath was the zamindar of from, interestingly, 1890 to 1918. Okay? So Lalon dies in October 1890. Rabindranath arrives in Kushtia as its zamindar in November, December 1890. It's very interesting, as if it's a relay race and someone's passing the baton from one hand to the next. And Rabindranath arrives there, and we don't know whether Rabindranath ever met Lalon or not. There's a lot of conjecture about this. And it's always, the conjecture is always phrased in this way. Did Rabindranath ever meet Lalon? Nobody ever phrases it the other way around. Did Lalon Phokir ever meet Rabindranath? So we have Shilaidaho on the other side with the Tagore estate. And Rabindranath has a whole series of poems. His entire Gitanjali was written in Kushtia. You know, and then his next book, which was Shonartori, the Golden Boat, that was almost entirely written in Kushtia, because the natural landscape that is described in almost all the poems in that collection refer to the Kushtia landscape. And if you go to Kushtia, you can still see it. You can still see, like when you go to the Lake District in England, you know that this is where Wordsworth must have written his poetry. Similarly, you go to Shilaidaho, you go to Kushtia, and you know where the poems of Shonartori, the Golden Boat, were written. But did Rabindranath meet Lalon Shah? We don't know. But he must have met other Phokirs. Or maybe he had met Lalon Phokir. Maybe Lalon Phokir had seen him when he was still not the zamindar, but was the young son of the Tagores who would come with the family to visit the family estate. Who knows? We don't know that. Rabindranath does not leave any record of any such meeting or doesn't share any memories. But in his notebook, there is this interesting thing. A little scribble in one of the pages, which does not appear to be Tagore's hand. It seems like somebody else wrote it. Or Tagore might have himself written it, but in a moving vehicle. It could be a palki, it could be a train, it could be an automobile, we do not know. He must have heard it on the road and tried to scribble it down. Okay? This song is a very important song in Lalon's oeuvre. Not because of it being a great song, but also because this was one of the first songs that the learned classes, the literate classes, the Bengali intelligentsia heard the name of Lalon Phokir from. This song continues to be popular among Bengali listeners and singers. Whenever Lalon is mentioned, this is the first song that comes to mind. খাঁচার মধ্যে অচিন পাখি কমনে আসে যায় দেখা পেলে মনোবেড়ি দিতেম তারি পায়. Now, if we look at the song, and I'll sing the first verse, Rabindranath makes, there are a lot of discrepancies in the way in which this song has been scribbled down. Many of these words that I'm marking there are words that are not correctly reflected. So it was a very quick recording. I mean, Tagore didn't have a mobile phone which could go into recording mode at the press of a button. So he had to remember and write, and he made mistakes. And those mistakes reveal a lack of understanding even at that stage. This is from, his early phase in Kushtia. So let's listen to the song a bit and mark the words. We are coming back to the idea of symbols. We are now returning back to the density of Lalon's symbology. But the most common symbol that he uses is that of the bird. When he talks about the man of the heart, the Moner Manush, the Godhead residing within the female body. Tare dhorte parle mono bedi আমি দিতাম পাখির পায়ে কমনে আসে যায় খাঁচার ভিতর অচিন পাখি কমনে আসে যায় তারে ধরতে পারলে মনো বেড়ি আমি দিতাম পাখির পায় কমনে আসে যায় খাঁচার ভিতর অচিন পাখি কমনে আসে যায়. Now we know that Tagore arrived in Kushtia after Lalon had died. There is a very rare photograph of Tagore from behind. That photo is very rare. Tagore is seen to be interacting with his subjects in his zamindari estate. Now, who are these people who are in front of Tagore, facing Tagore? Are these men peasants, farmers maybe? We don't know. Possible. Now, is this guy a shopkeeper? We don't know. But there is one guy who's also turned his back towards the camera. He's almost as tall as Tagore. And he's standing in attention, if you realize. It's like standing like in military position. So he's probably, I think, the bodyguard. So even Tagore, even someone like Tagore needed a bodyguard when he went to meet his subject. So there's always this nervous anxiety of a possible peasant revolt. So there was no love lost between the subject and the zamindar, of course. And Tagore, despite being who he was, when he was the zamindar, he was the zamindar, he was the zamindar. Okay? But outside of these, who is this guy? Is he a Phokir? Now, we can't see. The picture is too small, right? Let's try to isolate it a little bit. If you look closely, you will see that his hair is knotted. He has a beard as well. So two clues already there that he may be Phokir. Next, he's carrying a bag, and it's a bag made of cloth. It's not just a regular bag, it's a rag bag, we call it, which is cannot have any stitches on it. Okay, it has to be a piece of cloth that is tied into a knot. The knot is on the shoulder and it turns into a bag because of the knot. And that's where a Phokir is supposed to carry everything that he needs. Phokir does not need any other possession. It's a life free of possession. No ownership involved. All he has is one bowl of coconut shell from which he drinks, he eats, he pours water, everything is through that bowl, and he has his musical instrument. And maybe one change of clothes, that's all it needs. Okay? So there's that rag bag as well. So is that a Phokir? But is he the only Phokir in the crowd? Let's take a look at some other faces that are appearing. For example, if we look at this guy, these people, the guy on the left clearly looks like a profile image of Nandalal Bose's picture of Lalon. See? Doesn't it? And then the one in the middle, behind the man we have already identified as a Phokir, he is also a Phokir, it seems like. Same thing, pagdi on head and then beard. And then the guy on the extreme right looks like he's taking a selfie or something. He seems to be a Phokir as well. Again, bearded, all the telltale signs. Now, what is interesting is, unlike the servility one can see in the way the others are staring at Tagore, the Phokirs seem more genuinely awestruck or fearful, perhaps, of his presence. That is my subjective reading. You may disagree or agree, but that is my reading, that the look on the faces of the Phokirs is different from the servility that one finds in the other people. So in other words, they care a little less or care a bit too much about Tagore's political authority. Okay? So let's look at the expression on the face of that first Phokir that we identified. He's not smiling, and in fact, if you saw the original picture, you would see his eyes are literally like, I don't trust this man, and he's looking at Rabindranath Tagore. Now, this is the look that I found in the eyes of a Phokir about 100 years later. And this is the Phokir I was telling you about, the 108-year-old. Well, he died when he was 109, but I met him when he was 108. Badar Shah. And you can see that his left eye, the middle of the left eye is actually white. That means he can't see. But look at the eyesight of the blind. It seems like he's piercing you, but he can't see a thing. Perhaps his blindness allows him to see everything. That's why. Keeping that in mind, let's move on to a song by Lalon where he talks about the social reality of being a farmer under a zamindari system. In which he starts the song with a very factual statement that my promissory note of debt, oh mind, has been seized by the company. So what does that mean? That he had loaned money from the British East India Company's agent and he couldn't repay the debt. Therefore, the note has been seized, and the next step would be that he would be left landless. The land would be taken from him. But see how Lalon kind of ties that comment on the social system to his sadhana. Amar bakir kaha goes muntor gelo huzure bakir kaha goes ওরে কোন দিন যেন আসবে সহন তোর কোন দিন যেন আসবে সহন সাধের অন্তঃসপুরে বাকির কাগজ মন্তর গেল হুজুরে বাকির কাগজ. It's like the song is crying, even the melody. This melody I picked up from a Phokir who was 112 when he sang this song. So I would think this is a, you know, more or less authentic melody that has been passed on. But look at what Lalon does. He takes the social reality, even turns that into a symbol. You know, like you have the colonizing presence of the powers that be in the shape of the Zamindar and the British East India Company, you know, you have those parties within your body as well. Kam, Krodh, Lalasa. These are all there. So these are like the social exploiters. There's replication of the social order within the body as well. So he takes the idea of the colonial setup and suddenly uses that as a symbol to understand the enemies within the body as well. So he connects the external reality with the internal reality. Now he keeps doing this in song after song after song after song. You might think that, you know, he's talking about something secular or something, you know, independent, something, you know, that had nothing to do with his social practice. No, sir. No, madam. He doesn't do that. There's a song, for example, he has on cholera. Believe it or not, he has a song against cholera, saying, don't go jumping around in stagnated water. The water will go down your mouth and you will die. And then he describes in the second verse how, you know, tying, you know, these amulets on your hand, around your neck, putting mantra into them and putting stones and everything. None of this is of any good. You need to have a scientific mind and think logically what's in that water. Now, that water is not holy. There's nothing called holy water. Only clean water is holy water. Okay? Now he's making that statement. Then in the last verse, he makes a turnaround. What does he say? That, you know, our minds are like as restless as those people who want to go and jump in the water and play. You know, be careful or that other inner cholera will get you. So the cholera also ultimately is folded within this metaphor of the Moner Manush, of the man of the heart. Okay? So all songs basically go back to it. Now, I will return to the theme of the bird and sing you another song on the bird. Pakhi. In Bangla we say Pakhi for bird. So this song is called Pakhi Kokhon Jano Ude Jai. Now, Lalon wrote a lot of songs that were pretty plaintive and mournful, and they were about a life that he had led that failed. Lalon did not consider his sadhana to be successful. Maybe it was his humility that made him say so. I was having a chat with Shanti Prasad this morning, and we were talking about how we often use humility to hide the drama that plays out within us. Yes, tell me, I'm good, tell me, I'm good, tell me, I'm good, tell me, I'm good. And yet we say, no, I'm nothing. But Lalon, I believe, is actually trying to say that I'm nothing. There's a huge difference between that and social politeness, a performance of social politeness. So, and that is reflected even in the melody of the song. So this one, friends, bear with me, I'm going to sing the whole song. It's my favorite Lalon song. Please indulge. Pakhi kokhon jano ude jay, ekta bod hawa lege খাঁচায় কখন যেন উড়ে যায় পাখি কখন যেন উড়ে যায় খাঁচার আড়া পড়লো ধসে পাখি আর দাঁড়াবে কিসে আমি সেই ভাবনা ভাবছি বসে আমি সেই ভাবনা ভাবছি বসে চমক জরা বইছে গায়ে পাখি কখন যেন উড়ে যায় কারবা খাঁচাকে বা পাখি আমি ভেবে অন্ত নাহি দেখি আমারি আঙিনা থাকি পাখি আমার আঙিনায় থাকি আমারে মজাতে চাই পাখি আমারে মজাতে চাই পাখি কখন যেন উড়ে যায় আগে যদি যেত জানা ওরে জংলা কভু পোষ মানে না আগে যদি যেত জানা জংলা কভু পোষ মানে না আমি তার সাথে আর প্রেম করতাম না আমি তার সাথে আর প্রেম করতাম না লালন ফকির কেঁদে কয় শেষে লালন ফকির কেঁদে কয় পাখি কখন যেন উড়ে যায় একটা বদ হাওয়া লেগে খাঁচায় কখন যেন উড়ে যায় পাখি কখন যেন উড়ে যায়। Okay, now we have the bird, a bird in hand. What is it worth? Because Lalon also has other symbols that he uses. And one symbol that he uses, he moves both in the sky and underwater. He calls it a fish as well. Prem dubaru na hole min বাঁধবে না রে জালে অমিন বাঁধবে না রে জালে ডুবে দেখ না রে প্রেম নদীর জলে মিন রূপে সাই খেলে খেলে মিন রূপে সাই খেলে প্রেম ডুবারু না হলে মিন the symbology really keeps moving along, but we can never be sure about what he means by that. If you are not within the practice, or if you are not at least well informed about the practice, you would think that these are just purely philosophical utterances about the transience of life, etc., etc. But no, in Lalon's songs, they refer to very concrete elements of his sadhana, of his yogic practice. And we often tend to overlook that because we don't know that. And this is an excellent device because it allows Lalon to express something that is inexpressible. So here let's stop for a second and take a caveat from the American anthropologist Hugh Urban, where he says, we must be far more modest in our claims regarding esoteric traditions, no matter where, and far more ready to admit that there is an awful lot we do not know and cannot say much about, and accept the extreme indeterminacy inherent in the very nature of something that is supposed to be secret. I remember I once met an 85-year-old Phokir. He was one of the Phokirs that I respected the most. He died a couple of years ago, Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi rajiun, who once told me, I asked him a question about the practice, and he was usually a very calm and tender, soft man, very soft-spoken. His eyes always reflected a certain tranquility of heart. And for a second, he looked at me, and I could, for a nanosecond, see anger in his eyes. And he just smiled quickly. He hid it and then said, you know, my son, you are standing on the threshold to the room that is not yours. I have allowed you to do that, but no further. Stop. This is the furthest you can come. If you want to enter, you'll have to enter the practice. You have to enter the practice. So even despite all these years that I've spent on Lalon, I feel like I know very little. The more I know, the lesser it feels. Tagore has a song which goes, Noyon tumare paine dekhite, roecho noyone noyone. The eyes cannot see you, but you reside in the eyes, inside the eyes. Hridayo tumare paina janite. The heart cannot ever get to know you. Hridaye tomare paye na janite, hridaye roecho gopone. That you are somewhere inside the heart itself. It's almost like, we can see our body, right? You can see every part of your body. But the one thing that always represents you, your face. Have you ever thought this? You'll never be able to see your face ever in your life. You'll see a reflection, but a reflection is an inversion, right? Right becomes left, left becomes right. So it's the opposite. So you never really, you live an entire life without ever having met yourself. Itna sannata kyun hai bhai? Because it really puts you at the doorstep of the ultimate conundrum. Who are we? Where are we going? What is the meaning of this? How are we different from the ant that gets trampled? All right. Another Phokir in Kushtia who I met, who I was very close to, once told me something I think that is very important. He said, Aage gyan, pore gan. Gyan is the Bengali word for jnana, and gan is the word for gana. So you see the similarity in the two words. At first, you need the gyan, and then the gan can follow. Okay? In English, it's an unpoetic translation. Know first, sing last. Probably that's the only way of saying it in as pithy a way. And it's by Marhum Phokir Karim Shah, who received the highest national award, the Bharat Ratna equivalent, Ekushe Padok in Bangladesh, and he had to sell it as gold in order to pay for his wife's treatment. So that's how the nation deals with the very people it tries to respect. It didn't care about Lalon's image. What would it care for a poor, struggling, starving Phokir? Anyway, so that's where we stand. Now I'll move to another song that I will sing in its entirety. We have had the bird, we have had the Moner Manush, we have had the fish. Now he also calls this Moner Manush the neighbor. I don't know whether Lalon saw the partition coming, whether at one point Bengalis in West Bengal would have to look towards Bangladesh to find their neighbor there and vice versa. I don't know whether he saw that or not. But this song is about, I have not seen him even once, my neighbor, who lives in the city of mirrors near my house. Okay? So, and in this song you'll find that I'm using different melodies for each of the verses. Now, Lalon's songs are sung very differently from region to region. And at times, you fall in love with a certain melody and you don't care about, is this the original Shur of Kushtia, folk music or music that belongs to the oral tradition? Lalon knew how to read and write and chose not to. And he would make up his songs by mouth, he never wrote them down. So those are in the oral tradition. So oral tradition has a certain unfixity about it, a certain fluidity about it. Therefore, there is nothing called the original tune. So I've picked up 3 different tunes from 3 different areas of Bengal, West Bengal and Bangladesh together, and I'm trying to sing it with that in mind. বাড়ির কাছে আমার বাড়ির কাছে আর শ্রীনগর একজন পড়শি বসত করে, একজন পড়শি বসত করে, আমি একদিনও না দেখিলাম তারে। সে গ্রাম বেড়ে অগাধ পানি, ও তার নাই কিনারা, নাই তরণী পারে। আমি বাঞ্ছা করি দেখব তারে, মনে বাঞ্ছা করি দেখব তারে, কেমনে সে গায় যায় রে, আমি কেমনে সে গায় যায় রে, আমি একদিনও না দেখিলাম তারে। বলবো কি পড়শির কথা, ও তার হস্তপদ স্কন্ধ মাথা নাই রে, ও সে ক্ষণেক থাকে শূন্যের উপর, ও সে ক্ষণেক থাকে শূন্যের উপর, ক্ষণেক ভাসে নীরে, ও সে ক্ষণেক ভাসে নীরে, আমি একদিনও না দয়াল দেখিলাম তারে। পড়শি যদি আমায় ছুঁতো, আমার জম যাতনা সকল যেত দূরে, আবার সে আর লালন একখানে রয়, আবার সে আর লালন একখানে রয়, লক্ষ যোজন ফাঁকরে তাদের, লক্ষ যোজন ফাঁকরে আমি একদিনও না দেখিলাম, দেখিলাম, দেখিলাম তারে। Now, we will look at the prettiest and ugliest picture in Bengal. Pretty because blue is the sky, green is the grass, resplendent are the crops. And yet, one side of the border is West Bengal and the other side is Bangladesh, and this is the X factor. The border that cannot be crossed. Dogs can eat a biscuit in West Bengal and go and defecate in Bangladesh. The clouds don't need visas. The bird sings and what's sung in West Bengal will be heard in Bangladesh. But we, the unfortunate creatures that we are, the humankind, the glorious humankind, we need this stupid blue document that has to have an equally stupid sticker-like document pasted in that will allow me to go inside. You know, and you go to the other side, and as a Bengali, they, you know, on the other side, the border control sees the passport and looks at the visa, marks everything, everything is fine. And in a very accented Hindi says, "Aap India se kab aaya?" And I would say, "Excuse me, I can speak Bengali. I am Bengali. I may be from India, but I'm still Bengali." "Nahi, nahi, aap Indian hai." So suddenly, my identity as a Bengali is at question because of my passport. Now, unfortunately, this is what I need to do to get across that fence in order to get to Lalon's mausoleum. It says, Phokir Lalon Shah Jonmo Ogyato. Jonmo Ogyato means year of birth unknown. Mrityu, it states the date first in Bengali and then in English, last line, 17th October 1890. Okay? Now, this is fine. When I first went there in 1997, this plaque was not there, first of all. It was just a kind of a very rudimentary concrete house where the bricks were still visible, and it was just a mound in the middle of the room, on one side of the room really, and the guys that you saw on the video, Nizamuddin Phokir, showed it to me and said, "That's where Shaiji is asleep." But when I went back in 2008, between 1997 and 2008, I couldn't go. I didn't have any monetary support to conduct the research. So in 2008, when I finally went back to Bangladesh again, and since then I've been going almost every year, multiple times, this is what they had done to the tomb. So what used to be the akhada or the retreat, you know, without any religious connotation, whatever, suddenly had turned into a mazar. Okay? Now, you know, it looks very much, it's modeled on the Nizamuddin Auliya mausoleum in Delhi. It's a miniature of that. That's the kind of architectural style that has been used. So the akhada is now a mazar, and at night, sexy moonlight and all of these things make it look really cool. This is at night. Okay? In the morning, it turns into this. And can you see that arm peeping out through the left-hand side of the frame, a red bloused female hand? That's the mother. And this is the father taking the picture of the son. So it becomes a tourist site. It has been Disneyfied completely. And the river, the little river by which Lalon Shah was rescued, that river itself has been filled up, land filled, and turned into, guess what? Guess what? Make any wild guess, anybody? Across the Mazar, there's the river where Lalon Shah had swam over to be resuscitated by his Sufi parents. That river has been at least more than 60-70% of it has been landfilled and turned into, whatever remains has turned into a little pond. And it has been landfilled for what? Any guesses, anybody? A parking lot. I'm not joking. A parking lot where tourists come, the buses stand there and wait while the tourists go and, watch Mickey Mouse Lalon. Okay? But this is indeed something to be scared about. But what's more scary is the infiltration of this culture into the life of the fakirs themselves. Here's a fakir taking a selfie. So how are these realities reconciled? This is also something that needs to be talked about. We cannot just simply stop at saying, oh, the olden days were so nice, no mobile, no. Well, the olden days are gone and the mobile and the digitalization is here to stay. Now what? That is the question that faces me as a researcher. Let's return to Lalon's idea of situating himself between faiths, okay? There's a famous composer, poet that we had on the western side of the Bengal in the 18th and 19th centuries. His name was Ram Prasad Sen. Have any of you heard of his name, Ram Prasad Sen? He sang songs in praise of Kali, and his music is called Shyama Sangeet. Shyama meaning Shyama, the other name for Kali. So Shyama Sangeet, songs in praise of Kali. So Lalon uses that melody to sing this song. Podga namaz jene shune, podga namaz jene shune. So he is saying in the melody that is used to seek the blessings of Mother Kali, saying, yeah, you can sing that to Mother Kali, but also sing it to teach yourself how to really do the namaz. So look at this, Kali and Mecca are combined. Niyat badhge manush mokka pane, the Mecca within the body. Niyat badhge manush mokka pane, podga namaz jene shune. মানুষে মনস্কামনা সিদ্ধ কর বর্তমানে, মানুষে মনস্কামনা সিদ্ধ কর বর্তমানে. So he's saying, whatever you have to achieve in your human life, achieve it within the realm of this body. Why this body Mecca? Because this body is the Mecca. But what does that Mecca contain? What does the actual Mecca contain? The stone of the Kaaba, right? The black stone that everybody goes and touches. So instead of the black stone, this is what Lalon is saying, you'll find inside the human bodily Mecca. করছেন খেলা বিনোদ কালা সেই মানুষের তন ভুবনে. So he says, in the melody of a Shyama Sangeet of Kali song, he's saying the Mecca is inside the body, and inside the Mecca is Lord Krishna. We'll move on to another song. This time, I've been singing all very demure songs, so let's sing something that you can clap along with, and I will expect you to do that, all right? This song goes, Manush chhada khepare tui mool harabi, Manush bhojle sonar manush hobi. Okay, here's the translation. Manush chhada khepare tui মানুষ ছাড়া খেপারে তুই মানুষ ছাড়া খ্যাপা রে তুই মূল হারাবি, ওরে তুই মূল হারাবি। আর মানুষ ভজলে সোনার মানুষ হবি, মানুষ ভজলে সোনার মানুষ হবি, মানুষ ভজলে সোনার মানুষ হবি। দ্বিদলে মৃণালে সোনার মানুষ উজলে, দ্বিদলে মৃণালে সোনার মানুষ উজলে, মানুষ গুরুর কৃপা হইলে, মানুষ গুরুর কৃপা হইলে জানতে পারবি, ওরে তুই জানতে পারবি। আর মানুষ ভজলে সোনার মানুষ হবি, মানুষ ভজলে সোনার মানুষ হবি। মানুষে মানুষ গাঁথা গাছে যেমন আলেখ লতা, মানুষে মানুষ গাঁথা গাছে যেমন আলেখ লতা, জেনে শুনে মুড়াও মাথা, জেনে শুনে মুড়াও মাথা, জেনে শুনে মুড়াও মাথা, যাহাতে উঠবি, ওরে তুই যাহাতে উঠবি। মানুষ ভজলে সোনার মানুষ হবি, মানুষ ভজলে সোনার মানুষ হবি। মানুষ ছাড়া মন রে আমার, মানুষ ছাড়া মন রে আমার, দেখি রে সব শূন্যকার, মানুষ ছাড়া মন রে আমার, দেখি রে সব শূন্যকার। লালন কয় মানুষ আকার, লালন কয় মানুষ আকার, লালন কয় মানুষ আকার। ভজলে তোরবি, ওরে তুই ভজলে তোরবি, মানুষ ভজলে সোনার মানুষ হবি, মানুষ ভজলে সোনার মানুষ হবি, মানুষ ভজলে সোনার মানুষ হবি। Went to Kushtia in 97. This is how it looked like. Now 11 years later it had changed very dramatically. Let's see that change. This is now the venue for the state-supported institution, the Lalon Academy. That was until recently run democratically by a committee of elected life members, some of them belonging to the leading political parties of Bangladesh, striding both left and right, secular as well as the religious ideologues. These members came from the elite in Kushtia town, who have all paid hefty sums to buy life memberships. They run the place, decide who is to be invited, organize Lalon festivals, work with government and international funding, arrange tourist performances, organize classes and workshops for children and youth, and in October every year, they also organize the big Lalon Fair. Lalon dies through misunderstandings, political corruption, romantic and false elevations, embezzled funds, elitist takeovers, through the immense power of co-option, the printed text's conquest of Lalon's sung word, through making him a national icon, be it on a postage stamp or the brand logo of a mobile phone company. This is the billboard in front of that parking lot that I was talking about. And it says Lalon parking. And then there's a very hefty charge sheet over there. You know, for buses it's 200 taka. For microbus, it's 50 taka. Car is 30 rupees. Motorcycle, 10 taka. Then CNG. CNG means auto rickshaw. And those are for 10 rupees and bicycle is 5 rupees. And all of this goes to Lalon Academy at the bottom, it says so. Okay? Now, all of this adds up to a very disturbing and distressing conclusion. Thanks to the water distribution agreement between India and Bangladesh, the Gorai River, is a trickle today. The Kali Nodi, where Lalon had been rescued, has been landfilled and turned into a parking lot by the Lalon Academy for all sorts of vehicles to accommodate the ever-thronging tourists. The river is not much more than a trickle, more than a pond today. Not only is it an ecological disaster, it is also a heritage catastrophe. The Lalon Academy has turned into an institution held dubious by the Phokirs themselves. So this is a classic case of upper class and literate classes takeover of the subalterns. Okay? And you've seen, I've talked about Badir Shah, I've shown you his picture. Now let's hear his voice just a few months before he died.
আপনি তো এখন উঠতে পারেন না, আপনি এখন বিছেন কত ধরেন। এখন এই লালন একাডেমি যে কর্মকর্তারা আছেন, এরাই ভোট নিয়ে মারামারি কাড়াকাড়ি, তারপরও টাকাটুকি ছড়াছড়ি। এই কবরস্থান নিয়ে যারা এই যে টাকা নিয়ে যে ছড়াছড়ি করছে, চা খাওয়া খায়, এই যে টাকা দিয়া করছে, এটা কি লালন শাহ কোনোদিন তার ধারাবাহিকতায় আইনি আছে, বিধানে আছে? এটা কি উনি সমর্থন করতেন নাকি? কোন তো দেখি।
তা আপনার কি মত এই মাজার নিয়ে এরকম টানাটানি?
আমরা ওর প্রতি কেমন করে জবাব দেবো হারাতে? আমরা বাইরে ফাঁকে রয়েছি।
আপনারা ওইসবের মধ্যে নাই?
না।
দেখি মনে করেন লালনের অপমান হচ্ছে এতে?
সে বুঝবো লালন।
I think he gives the best possible answer. That is the ultimate defense mechanism. That come what may, if there's a storm blowing, I'll just duck and avoid the storm. I'm not going to try and fight the storm because it will kill me. So the pragmatic way is to duck, let the storm pass, because the storm has no personal enmity with me. If I don't do anything to it, it won't hurt me. So run away, let the storm pass, and then be yourself again. So this is how the Baul faith has actually survived. Now, Lalon talks about this as well. The one song where he actually talks about the city-bred people actually who are exploiting the urban people, this whole urban-rural divide and relationship based on exploitation. Lalon talks about in his song, and then guess what he does? Guess what he does? He takes that exploitative relationship, that scheme of things, and turns it into the exploitation that happens within the body, how Kaam, Krodh, and etc., like we were seeing with the other instance. But what's interesting here in this particular song, he talks about the 16 pirates of the city inside his body. Now what's interesting is that for city we use in Bengali the word shohor. We don't use nagara, which is the Sanskrit word. We often use shahar, which is actually a Farsi word, shahr, okay, for city. And then he uses sholo jona bombete. Bombete is a word that derives from the Portuguese bombardiers, armada, the pirates, not of the Caribbeans, of Portugal. Okay, so he's using a Portuguese-based word, he's using a Farsi word, and he's writing it, putting it in a Bengali sentence. So he's actually not just talking about the British colonials, he's also referring to further back, to Portuguese colonization. Oftentimes we forget that there's a big legacy of the Portuguese in Bengal. Most of the Bengali Christian population on both sides of the border have Portuguese last names: Gomez, Rosario, de Costa, de Souza. These are names that we find. So there is a whole history of Portuguese colonialism also that is overshadowed by the British colonial history. But Lalon is not unmindful of that. He remembers that as well. So, but the enemies of the city, the 16 pirates of the city, why are they 16? We all know about the Shada Ripu, that there are, you have the 6 indriyas, the 6 senses, and then the 10 further ripus of the body. So together they turn it into 16. So I'll reveal the next verse when time comes, but enjoy this bit. করিয়ে পাগল পারা করিয়ে পাগল পারা নীল তারা সব লুটে ভাইরে নীল তারা সব লুটে শহরের 16 জনা বোম্বেটে শহরের 16 জনা বোম্বেটে শহরের 16 জনা বোম্বেটে রাজেশ্বর রাজা যিনি চোরে শিরোমণি রাজেশ্বর রাজা যিনি চোরে শিরোমণি নালিশ করিব আমি কার কাছে কার নিকটে কার কাছে কার নিকটে শহরের 16 জনা বোম্বেটে শহরের 16 জনা বোম্বেটে. So the 16 pirates are everywhere, there, both within the body and without the body, both inside and out there. And Lalon keeps connecting these distant dots and brings them all into one discursive strategy, one discursive narrative. So who then was Lalon is our big question. On the one hand, he was a spiritual practitioner, a sadhak, within a specific hermeneutic system and philosophy. Okay, it's a very prescribed, well-organized. It may be a mix of many influences, but what has emerged is a very organized system of practice. We must understand his music as a manifestation of that practice, as sadhan sangit, sadhan sangit, mystical, devotional music, not populist folk music meant merely for entertainment. It's more than that. He created a system of spiritual as opposed to religious practice that united elements from different religions available to him into a syncretic, or rather hybrid entity that was truly secular as opposed to tolerant. Remember, we started the lecture with that. He looked for the creator within the created. So that's an interesting thing, because even other bhakti movement figures have said this. Like Kabir says, कहत कबीर विचारो सैण माही सैण मिली हाँ रंग महल में अजब शहर में आजारे हंसा भाई निर्गुण राजा में स्थिरगुण सी मिल जाई. He's saying that the sign resides within the sign. The sign, the manifestation of God that we look outside, that sign resides within the sign, because I am also a sign of God's creation, but God resides within me. So it's like eternity within a transient entity. So this is what he's positing. Okay, he inverted patriarchal misogyny by putting woman at the center of his practice and search for divinity. This is another breakaway, rebellious, revolutionary step. He was a social commentator who linked his practice to the social conditions he lived in. He was a political commentator who connected both his practice and social condition to larger historical and political context. He was arguably a proto-feminist revolutionary, a feminist before the term feminism gets coined, who worked surreptitiously with an egalitarian philosophy that had grown out of the soil of the land. What are the aims of the project Man of the Heart? What we have done, we've been doing this production for 13 years now. Probably it's time to bring the curtains down on it. So I think I'm going to stop it. But then now I have to start working on a book, but my biggest problem with the book idea is how do I textually produce that is unproducible as text? Lalon resisted textualization. He resisted the written word. So how do I use writing to do justice to that unwritten spoken word? So I don't know, I haven't yet solved that conundrum. The struggle is ongoing. But eventually it will be a research cum practice project where practice will be just as important as the research. Research started in 1991, fieldwork in 1997, performance began in 2005, running for 13 years on the trot now. Can performance, and all of this to ask the big question, can performance serve as an index to written archive and fieldwork? Can it compensate, can it add value to what the archive misses? Because the archive is always fragmentary, the archive is always metonymic, it tends to take the part for the whole, but it is not the whole. And it's the whole point of oral and field research and visual and performative research is to kind of complete the picture. So how can that play in the world of textual academia? Performance as a response to and a record of orality, so it needs to work as both. Going beyond thick description that Clifford Geertz, the anthropologist, has talked about. He already started post-structuralist anthropology, has already started the dismantling of objective anthropology and bringing subjectivity back into it. And performance actually brings the body of the anthropologist in the center stage of the research project. So how do you deal with that? You have to go beyond thick description. Subjectivity that veers on narrativity from within, from the belly of the beautiful beast called Lalon Phokir. Propose a new, more organic model of secularism. We will end the performance with just one song. It's, I think, a song on globalization and contemporary South Asia, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, whatever you take. And it was composed more than 100 years ago. Ved vidhir por shastro kana, ved vidhir por shastro kana, ar ek kana munamar. Eshob, the mall culture, the elections, Palestine, Israel, Pulwama, Eshob, dekhi kanar, hat bazaar. Eshob dekhi kanar, hat bazaar. Eshob dekhi kanar, hat bazaar. পণ্ডিত কানা অহংকারে মাতুব্বর কানা চুকল খোরে, তোরা আন্দাজি এক খুঁটি গেড়ে, আন্দাজি এক খুঁটি গেড়ে, ওরে জানে না সীমানা তার। এসো দেখি কানার হাট বাজার, এসো দেখি কানার হাট বাজার। এক কানা কয়ে আর এক কানারে। This is the election special verse. এক কানা কয়ে আর এক কানারে, চলো এবার ভব পাহাড়ে। নিজেই কানা পথ চেনে না, নিজেই কানা পথ চেনে না, তবু পরকে ডাকে বারংবার। এসব দেখি কানার হাট বাজার, এসব দেখি কানার হাট বাজার। আচ্ছা ভাই আসলাম, সবাইকে বললাম। আচ্ছা ভাই আসলাম, সবাইকে বললাম। গুড বাই ফ্রেন্ডস, থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ ফর লিসনিং।